Tonight on News 5 Live, 2 remaining COVID-19 cases recover, but Belize is still not considered COVID-free. 6 persons, including Mark Neal, owner of Body 2000, are arrested and charged for being inside the popular Belize City Gym, contrary to the state of emergency regulations. The future of Harvest Key in limbo as Norwegian Cruise Lines say it could file for bankruptcy. Concerns emerge over the mandatory use of masks to protect from COVID-19. An internist says it is a sacrifice that must be made at this time. And fires in the Vaca and Chiquibul forest subside. Details of these stories and more coming up in tonight's newscast.
Smart is fully prepared for the demands on our network to facilitate those working from home and for customers to continue communicate with friends and family. With the entire country at home, our team has pushed for more innovative services and promotions like our double data along with new ways of purchasing mobile services via our app and agents countrywide. Smart is proud to have dedicated staff working from home as well as out in the field to keep communication flowing.
Welcome to News 5 Live for Tuesday, May 5th. I am Marlene Cuellar. Belize is down to 0 active COVID-19 cases. This is the good news that emerged from the Ministry of Health this afternoon and is widely welcomed by Belizeans. But according to the Director of Health Services, Dr. Marvin Manzanero, we have not beaten the pandemic as yet. While the last 2 cases resulted in negative after 2 rounds of tests, there are 15 persons still under investigation. Dr. Manzanero says that Belize is not, we repeat, we are not COVID-19 free. In the first wave of COVID-19, Belize registered 18 positive cases, 2 of which resulted in deaths. 1,128 tests were conducted. Officials are expecting a second wave, which according to Dr. Manzanero can be more severe and deadly.
We're down to 0 active COVID-19 cases. Does this mean that we're free from COVID-19? What is the case?
Yeah, that's a piece of good information that I just received, and today we got our data earlier than normal. I guess people were in a hurry to confirm the last 2 active cases. And the short answer to the question is no, we are not free of COVID-19, and I think we need to get down to the point that COVID-19 is here to stay with us. And that's the piece of bad news in the good news that we are delivering this afternoon.
How many days should go by without any confirmed case where we can officially declare Belize COVID-19 free?
Well, the reason I'm a little bit cautious about saying COVID-19 free is because even though we may get over this first wave, which is where I think we are going towards, or the question is leading towards, is we have to be mindful of the fact that COVID-19 is going to be around us. It's not really going to ever go away. We don't live in a bubble. So eventually you can have a second wave. So if we are able to make it through next week, Sunday, Monday, without any case, we will be able to say that at least this first wave seems to have been contained, and we should be able to finish our preparations for whenever a second or third wave comes about.
Is it your expectation that the second wave will be more fatal than the first?
Well, this first wave ought to have taught us a lot of things about COVID-19 in terms of how we go about doing our surveillance containment exercises. But as we had said before, any successful containment strategy is not really a Ministry of Health's sole responsibility. You require an all of government, all of community effort. And I think that this is what is being translated into. So if we go about and haven't learned anything whenever there's a second wave, can it be more lethal? Yes, if we don't take the necessary precautions. We are by no means have gotten rid of COVID-19. As we said, even before we had our first case, we don't live in a bubble. It's going to be coming. It's just not. It's just when. And I think it's similar here. I mean, we may have gotten over the first wave, but when the second wave is going to come is the question here. It's not if, but it's when.
While some of the most severe restrictions in modern days have been relaxed, the state of emergency remains in place for another 2 months. With an imminent second wave of COVID-19, Director of Health Services Dr. Marvin Manzanero is asking the public not to let down their guard and to remain vigilant. Dr. Manzanero says that Belizeans should adapt to the new norm of distancing themselves in public.
If we haven't learned anything, then we're going to be in trouble, because this should have allowed us to establish a new norm, how we are going to go about doing our lives as we move along. The social structures that we used to have are no longer going to be in play. You notice that we are talking about bars, restaurants, gymnasiums, casinos not being open, church not being open. So we have to be mindful of that fact. Those social measures will need to remain in place. They are not going to go away anytime soon. So if Belizeans start to feel that there is no potential case out there, remember, we should be preparing for whenever there's a second wave. So this is the new norm. I noticed people started questioning whenever we said this is the new norm for the next 2 years. And people are saying, but I think you mean 2 months. No, we mean 2 years. if not more. You're noticing people saying, I don't know if travel will ever be the same. Some articles have been published in the US that their travel advisory is perhaps not going to go back to where it was until next year. So those things we need to start looking, digesting, and understanding that that's how we are going to go about as we conduct our daily business. Because if not, then we're going to have indeed a bigger wave of potential more cases if we're not fully prepared.
Mr. Mansadero, is it frustrating for you to know that some Belizeans, some members of the public, are not adhering to the SOE regulations, social distancing, properly covering their face, their nostrils and mouth? Is it frustrating for you?
I don't know if frustrating is the adequate word to describe it. It pains me to think that I mean, we are going now into our 5th month of trying to get a message across. Granted, it has been changing because it's a changing dynamics in terms of COVID-19, but in terms of getting the prevention message across, that people are not really adhering, are not listening, are not abiding, because the message is not going to change once you have a new wave coming in.
Neighboring countries in the north and west, Mexico and Guatemala, are recording an increase of COVID-19 cases. With Belizeans illegally crossing the border, the possibility of a more lethal second wave is looking like a real possibility. Guatemala has recorded 730 cases, with 46 cases in the Petén region. In the state of Quintana Roo, Mexico, 23 persons died due to COVID-19 within 24 hours. Mexico has recorded close to 1,000 positive cases and 144 deaths. Dr. Manzanero says that officials here are monitoring the situations in bordering countries.
We can't shy away from the fact, and in the infographic data we publish on social media, that our 3 neighbors, or 4 immediate neighbors, if you will, Honduras, Guatemala, Mexico, and the US, are having increasing number of cases, increasing mortality rates, and they are not expected to peak until the next 2 or 3 weeks. And peak means the highest number in a given time period. It doesn't mean that it's going to go away or that curve is going to taper anytime soon. So as long as you have those cases brewing with your neighbors, then we are not in the clear at all.
I believe in a state of Quintana Roo, Mexico, 23 persons passed due to COVID-19 in the last 24 hours. That is alarming. Are you and your experts monitoring that situation there up north?
Yeah, Cancun Cancun and the Playa del Carmen area are the ones that are having increasing numbers. The Oton Blanco municipality, which is where Chetumal is, and reported at midday today a total of 24 cases. So when you look at it, they have almost the same population as we have. They have more cases now than we have. So you can't just assume that things are far away. I mean, we still have Belizeans that are accessing services in Merida or in Campeche. We are aware of Belizeans who are right now across the border in Chetumal, waiting to see when they will be allowed to come back into country. So those are things that you have to be mindful of.
The full force of the law unexpectedly came down on Body 2000 this morning. The popular gym located on Coney Drive closed during the state of emergency and is not among the list of businesses that can yet reopen. But this morning, shutters were down when police dropped by and found 5 persons inside the gym. Its owner, Mark Neal, says there was no training going on, but maintenance work was mostly taking place. It did not stop the police from charging him and others, though Neal was not at the gym when the police got there. By this afternoon, there was a stunning revelation after action report of the events of this morning. One of the 4 officers on duty confirmed that the gym was shuttered and padlocked when they got there under instructions. News 5's Isani Cayetano filed the following report prior to the action.
Gymnasiums, as well as other sports and fitness clubs, remain closed until further notice. That directive falls within the regulations of Statutory Instrument 65, a point that was also reiterated by Attorney General Michael Perrafid during Monday's episode of Ask the Experts.
Gymnasium sporting complexes remain closed.
This morning, a team of policemen visited Body 2000 here on Coney Drive. Inside were 5 persons, including Delroy Herrera. According to the tour guide, they were all going about their business individually, and no one was using the facility for exercise. Before they knew it, the officers were threatening to breach the shutters.
What happened this morning was that we were at Body 2000, 5 of us. One of the manager who manages the gym and takes care of the equipment and so forth, I was there helping him, taking some old bolts and stuff out. And the other guys were upstairs. A lady was upstairs and she was sitting on the thing. She rented some equipment and she had to pick them up from the gym. And then we have a brother and sister who was there as well. Mr. Powell, he and his sister was actually picking up some equipment from a power washer that they have there and stuff like that as well. And so when I was banging the Allen key and we were making noise. And we started hearing that the police are saying that they're going to kick down the door and stuff like that. And what happened is that we ended up opening the door for them. The shutter was locked, front and back was locked. And we actually opened the shutters for them and so forth, and then they came in.
When they entered the building, a search of the premises was conducted, and the officers found that only 5 persons were present. A short while thereafter, a call was placed to Mark Neal, proprietor of Body 2000.
Approximately about 8:10, 8:15, so I have a phone call from Beres, and he notified me that the police, they took them to Bilama station. So, and I decided I'm going to get dressed, and I get a next phone call. The next phone call, I asked him to speak to the sergeant who in charge or the inspector who in charge. The inspector told me, he said, Mr. Neal, come down, we want to talk to you, find an establishment open. I said, no, you cannot, because the establishment been closed. It haven't been open. So how could you tell me my establishment open? So he said, well, come down, we want to talk to you. So as soon as I went down there, they asked me for my ID and they charged me.
Just like that, Neal was charged along with 5 others. Herrera, Paul, and physical trainer Beresford Hawes were each charged for the offense of being unable to provide a reasonable explanation for proof of movement outside of curfew and fined $1,000.
These things in the law remain there. They still cannot happen. Businesses are being opened up for people to go and purchase stuff that they need and for people to go to work. But other than that, things that are not necessary are not yet allowed in general.
According to Neal, the officers could have exercised better judgment and discretion based on the explanation, as well as the proof that was provided to them.
Body 2000 have over almost 200 and some customers. They find 2 people who work here and 3 other people, well, who are assisting Beres with the fixing up the equipment, because we changing pads and different things. I even have texts that Mr. Carter texted me and said, Mr. Neal, your padding is basically ready, so I'll come pick it up, ready from noon. So I showed the officer all that, and he said, well, when he goes to court, that's thing, but I think they're supposed to use their own discretion, basically when they come to people's establishment.
Reporting for News 5, I am Isana Cayetano.
According to the report, the incident occurred at 7 a.m. when the police team was instructed by a senior officer to check on the gym. In the report, one of the officers states that they made checks and noticed that the front shutter was down and locked with 2 padlocks on each end. Photographs were taken and sent to the police blog. Checks were also made to the back of the building where a wooden door was seen. But 2 officers shook the door, called out, and there was no answer. The report concludes saying that the team stood there for 10 minutes and still no one came out to answer. So a member of the police team says the building was shuttered and locked when they got no answer from inside. Neal and the other 5 persons charged also have their own version of what transpired at Body 2000 this morning. But Commissioner of Police Chester Williams says that the gym was in fact in use for exercise purposes. In an interview he granted earlier today, Compol Williams told the media that the owner of the facility attempted to conceal the fact that the gym was in fact open by simply shuttering the entrance of the building.
This morning we got information that Body 2000 was open, but again, the proprietor tried to be astute in the sense that they pulled down the shutter, make it look like it was closed, but inside, the members were inside working out. So they would come to the gym, they go inside, then the shutters are pushed or pulled down to make it look like they were closed. And so I had sent the officers to the gym this morning to be checked. And yes, we found out that there were 4 persons inside working out. And the shutters were closed, and so those persons were detained, and have directed the officer in charge of the visiting to ensure that the manager or owner of the gym is located.
What is the future of Harvest Key in southern Belize? As you know, the novel coronavirus wreaked havoc in the entire tourism industry across the globe, when no sale orders were imposed and cancellations came fast and furious. This morning, one of the biggest investors in the local industry, Norwegian Cruise Lines, said it sees, quote, substantial doubt about its future and warns of possible bankruptcy as it seeks to raise $2 billion, unquote, to keep afloat. NCL is facing losses for the period ending March 31st and foresees that the coronavirus outbreak is expected to continue to impact its operations, growth, reputation, and cash flows. These factors, it says, have raised substantial doubt about the company's ability to continue as a going concern. Now, NCL invested heavily in 2016 at Harvest Key in the range of $50 million, which had to close when cruise ships canceled sailing at the start of the pandemic. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention ordered no sailings in March and has extended the order to July 24th. A possible bankruptcy decision by NCL is likely to affect the operations in southern Belize and have an overall impact on the entire industry. Harvest Key is heavily promoted by NCL as a premier destination. We reached out to the cruise lines today. There was no comment up to news time, but we do note that Colin Murphy of its destination department retired in April. On the flip side, Carnival announced it will begin sailing on August 1st with 8 ships from Miami, Port Canaveral, and Galveston. As of May 1st, 2020, importers of liquefied petroleum gas, LPG, Gastumsa Limited, Southern Choice Butane, Zeta Gas, and Belize Western Energy Limited cannot import butane gas into Belize. That responsibility belongs now to the National Gas Company, and the LPG importers are currently locked in a legal battle with the government over the importation license. The companies are being represented by attorney Audrey Matura, who says that the National Gas Company is not prepared to distribute across the country. Matura says that while the companies were informed last month that NGC will commence commercial operations on May 1st, a letter was received indicating that government has yet to approve the start date.
Our clients got a letter dated the 28th February 2020, and at the first paragraph, the first point, the supplier, the controller of supplies, Mr. Trejo, says, the government of Belize expects the National Liquefied Petroleum Gas Terminal to commence commercial operation on the 1st of May 2020. That's what he says. Yesterday, one of my clients got a letter signed by Mr. Gele Canton, in which he says, we now await the requisite approval from the government of Belize, including the approval of the commercial operation date, which under Act number 12 of 2019 means the date on which NGC commences commercial operation. Why did he say that in this letter? Because he's basically saying we haven't started commercial operation. So then if they haven't started commercial operation, why is it that the government stopped giving license to our clients to import petroleum? Because as I understand it, NGC is saying that, look, we got petroleum, but we can't distribute it to you all yet. And what you all should ask them is that we understand from their own staff that they have technical problems why they cannot distribute. And so the government is hoping that our clients will be able to meet that default. Meanwhile, our clients has been writing the National Gas Company to say, look, I want you all to now tell me what is the price and how soon you can supply us with petroleum. And that's not fully answered.
It's Cinco de Mayo today. So there's no indication that the company is up and running.
Nope. And it's already the Cinco de Mayo, as you say. 5 days later, when the correspondence that prompted us to go to court immediately says that from the 1st of May. And that letter is dated from the 28th of February 2020. So something is not proper in their operation. And they need to be honest. Our inside information is that they are not fully installed as they should. That if they try and push it, there would be certain hazards, but they're the best persons to answer.
Managing Director for NGC, Dr. Gilbert Canton, told News 5 this evening there is an inventory of 1.4 million gallons of LPG in Big Creek. He says this is the largest inventory of LPG in Belize ever. According to Dr. Canton, the company is awaiting approval of the commercial operations date by the government. Dr. Canton said, quote, "The former importers in the past week have fully stocked their fixed storage capacity and also have additional LPG sitting in truck tankers at various locations. So there is no issue of supply in the country. Once they've sold this inventory, NGC will be available to replenish their stocks from our inventory," unquote. Matura also raised questions about the owners of the National Gas Company. The company is a public-private partnership with the government of Belize holding 25% of shares. The list of shareholders includes a U.S.-based company called BWT Holdings, while the locals are M&M Limited, GA Rowe, Gilly Canton, and Bowen & Bowen. BWT Holdings owns the largest bulk of shares in the company, and according to Matura, that hardly makes it Belizean-owned.
This monopoly, who owns it? A company named Innovative Energy Solutions Belize Limited, that is at Unit 17 Northern Shops in Belize. They own 2,400 of the shares. BWT Holdings LLLP, which their address is 164 Industrial Parkway, Jackson, Minnesota, USA. They own 7,800 shares. They have the maximum, the larger amount. Then M&M Limited of number 1 City Street owns 1,200. GA Rowe and Sons, the insurance company of Coney Drive, owns 1,200. Bedco Limited of Mile 63 George Price Highway owns 1,200. Bowen and Bowen Limited owns 1,200, and then the government of Belize owns 5,000 shares. So who owns the majority shares or the largest amount of shares? A foreign company. So it is hypocritical for the Prime Minister and his subsequent ministers and senators to stand up in the National Assembly and tell the Belizean people, oh, we need to get rid of those companies and stop them from importing because they're foreign owner. And then turn around and a national, so-called national company, the largest amount of shares you give it to a foreigner we know nothing about. At least these ones that they are calling foreigners have a 30-year history with us, and they're all registered Belizean companies.
Coming up, COVID-19 brings rival gangs together, and social distancing and water taxes causing a headache for the police.
Hello, friends. I'm Dr. Bob Roberts with another 60-second sermon from God's Word.
Earlier this year, a state of emergency was instituted on the south side of the city, allowing for the imprisonment of gang members due to the spike in violent crimes. After reviving an old truce, the gangs were released from prison and have generally kept the peace. Today, rival gangs on Police Street were out together, distributing much-needed food assistance to the less fortunate in that community. Here is News 5's Isani Caetano with that report.
Is meaningful reform at all possible among feuding Belize City gangs? We've covered several ceasefires over the past 5 years, some that were organized through the Conscious Youth Development Program, and others that were called by their respective leaders. Oftentimes, those fragile agreements to end the senseless violence and increase the peace are short-lived, futile attempts that culminate in bloodshed. This morning, rival groups in the Police Street neighborhood are putting down the guns in the name of brotherhood. Leading the charge is Brandon Baptist.
We just want to show the neighborhood and show people that we don't know monsters, right? Everybody take we for monsters, you check. We want to show that we could get together and live together as one, you get the sense? So basically right now we just try live as one, we try help out back for the community and then you get the sense. The poor, the needed, and like a lot of people out there we need right now, you get the sense? So we get together and put fully money together and we say, well, we are called together as one and we are trying to help people, we are to help who we could help, you understand?
That newfound sense of unity sees factions of PIV and the rival group led by Brandon Baptist coming together amid the economic crisis brought about by COVID-19 to reach out to the less fortunate. This morning, with the assistance of CYDP, they went around the community distributing food supplies purchased with their own monies.
Now people feel free and think, don't worry about we, you get a sense? You don't have to worry no more, because we don't need to know beef and we don't need to know problem no more. And check we have to live now. You get a sense, because we get older. You check, we know they get younger, we get older. So we have to learn to live as one. You get a sense?
You guys come from a somewhat long history of feuds with each other, the two sides of Police Street. How did you guys decide at this point to put all of those differences behind you?
Well, that's why I put everything behind we, man. You get a sense? Because it makes sense so we got to force our fight with each other for. Understand? Because we can't put out there and say, well, we the fight for this. Check? So we just want to stop all this. You don't want no more fuss or fight no more. We just want to live as one. You understand me? You don't go to the field for make we could just talk to each other, walk beside each other, heal each other. And a good feeling to me, you get a sense? Although a lot of things don't happen already, but we put them outside, we put them back away, you get a sense? And that's why I make people know that we straight to me, you know, no problem maker thing to me, check.
Now talk to me about what you guys have put there to go out and distribute to people in the neighborhood.
You know, I repackage there, not much, you know, I got rice, beans, whatever, flour, early noodles, snacks, soft drinks, all this stuff, understand me? And we put together and say, well, we are trying to help out people when need, you understand?
Reporting for News 5, I am Isani Caetano.
Commissioner Williams was in San Pedro today, where he met with Coastal Executive Officer, Superintendent Chris Noble, and his team of officers, as well as with San Pedro Mayor Daniel Guerrero. Over a week ago, regulations put in place by the mayor, violating the national state of emergency. As you know, central government balked and the police were instructed to stick to the national regulations. Now, the latest amendment of the statutory instrument number 62 also makes the wearing of masks compulsory. According to Compo Williams, some residents and businesses were visibly in violation of the regulations on the island.
One of the things I'm seeing is that there are a number of persons who are not wearing masks, moving around the island. I'm also seeing that some of the business places are not in compliance with the law in the sense that there is no markers outside of the establishments as the law stipulates. I have brought that to the attention of Mr. Noble and have told him that he needs to ensure that the officers enforce the law as is. These measures are put in place to ensure the safety of all. While we have opened up to some extent, there is still restriction of movement in respect to cross municipality, cross districts, and so just like if you're in Belize, if you want to go to Belmopan or you want to go to Orange Walk, the police can stop and question it to ensure that your reason for going is one that falls within the regulation. So the same principle must apply in the sense that some mechanism must be put in place in Belize City to question every passenger who is coming on these water taxi to ensure that they are coming to San Pedro for a reason that would be supported by the legislation.
Commissioner of Police Chester Williams addressed the concerns arising from the lack of social distancing at the water taxi terminals and on their vessels. While these can now operate, today another picture surfaced on social media of a water taxi filled to capacity with passengers leaving San Pedro and heading into the city. Even though the passengers wore masks, there was no physical distancing observed. The photograph is on the heels of a video that was circulated on Monday of persons clustered on a pier in San Pedro. Today, Chester Williams also visited with manager of the water taxi and explains that changes must be made there as well.
One of the greatest concerns that people on the island as well as those on mainland have is the issue relating to the water taxi. Now there are several photographs going around on social media showing that these water taxis are overcrowded. And so I had visited the water taxi terminal here in San Pedro, and I had spoken to the manager and explained to him what the requirements are. And so I am happy to say that I see they have put things in place to ensure social distance when boarding. Now the issue is whether or not there is sufficient being done to ensure social distance when unloading. And so what I said to him is that he must ensure that whenever they're unloading, that they let out passengers one at a time, and each passenger must give the one ahead of him or her sufficient distance before coming off the boat so as to maintain social distance.
Secondary schools are still working out what will happen for students when the new academic year starts in September. Will they all be promoted to a new class, or will some other decision be taken based on academic performance? That's the question for many high school students, and there are reports that some high schools do not support an automatic promotion. The Ministry of Education has announced that the education rules provide for automatic promotion of all students at the primary school level. But when it comes to the high schools, they must make that decision based on their respective policies. Today, the Ministry of Education issued a memo to all principals and management of secondary schools to, quote, be reasonable and compassionate at this time by adjusting school policies and practices as necessary, unquote. Chief Education Officer Dr. Carol Babb spoke with the reporters today about the matter.
I know that we don't have any control over their promotion and assessment policies. That's left to the individual secondary schools. So we're asking them, we know that they are the ones who will determine who will be promoted or who will not be promoted. But we are asking them to be mindful, to be compassionate, and to realize that this is an extremely difficult time for everyone. So wherever it is possible, we are asking that children be promoted and be given the opportunity once they get into the new class, provide them with support with interventions to ensure that they are up to speed or up to the level that the teachers expect them to be. At the primary level, the education rules speak to automatic promotion. At the secondary level, it's different. It's dependent on the high schools, academic policies, and procedures.
Will the MOE play any sort of maybe mediator role if there are issues arising out of these concerns coming from principals of the school?
Well, we have met with the managing authorities and we have appealed to them, and we are hoping that they will, just be compassionate, just be understanding at this time. This is a difficult time, an unprecedented time that no one in this lifetime has experienced. So we are asking them to be mindful of that.
When she spoke with the media today, Dr. Babb also gave an update on the progress of the ministry's educational programs for students. As you know, the ministry is offering academic resources for students to do work via lessons aired on television and radio, as well as hard copies made available for those living in rural areas. Dr. Babb says that the ministry will be increasing the output of its printed materials as there's a growing demand for the resources.
We have different modality. We are doing online lessons for those who have access to television and radio. We're also delivering hard packages like actual paper, the same lessons that are online. Students can have access to those packages. They will be distributed to every single district, and parents can have them at various locations like major stores, financial institutions, etc.
Have you received an update if families are going to collect, especially the hard copies?
Yes, we have. Actually, when we didn't have them in Belize City, parents were calling. Parents do want their children to have these packages. They want their children to be engaged at this time.
We were trying to look for booklets, so we went to like all the different stores in Belize that should have the booklets, and all of them ran out. And I know this is a new process. This is something new for the ministry to deal with. So is there any to maybe ramp up the amount of booklets that are being made and the speed at which they reach the stores?
Well, I think next week when we give out the new set, we will get them on a more timely basis. We are printing 20,000 for primary and preschool and 10,000 for secondary school. As you know that there are only about 60 secondary schools and there are about 300 primary schools across the country. So the demand for primary is definitely more, and we are going to try our best to try to meet the needs of students.
Since you don't have that ritual of going to classes, that urgency that scholars face having to keep up with their homework and their lessons at class, that students may not be motivated or may fall behind because of this event?
Well, we realize that this is an unprecedented time. This has never happened in the history of Belize. And so we are appealing to parents. We have to appeal to parents because school is not open as it normally should. So we appeal to parents to support their children, to ensure that they are listening to the radio shows. For some of them, they can also watch the television shows. Those who have access to internet and a device, they can also participate. So we appeal to parents. Ensure that your children are doing the online activities or using the hard copy to make sure that they're making good use of this time, that they are at home.
After the break, it is mandatory to use face masks in public, but is it adhered to?
You can use the power of the internet to continue your child's learning and keep their minds engaged while everyone stays at home. Here are some things to consider. First, technology alone cannot replace parental presence and guidance. You must play an active part in their online sessions and make adjustments if necessary to keep them interested. Secondly, resources are readily available. For more
The use of face masks is now a must for persons venturing in public during the next 30 days of the state of emergency. That has created a whole new industry for enterprising Belizeans, so that everywhere you go, the masks are now part of the norm. But can the masks contribute to the deterioration of any pre-existing health condition? We got the answers from the experts. Here's News 5's Dwayne Moody.
An amendment to Statutory Instrument Number 62 of 2020 has made the wearing of masks mandatory. All persons, when leaving their homes, must adhere to the law, or they will be picked up by the police and charged for violating the state of emergency regulations during the COVID-19 situation. While many are complying, there are complaints of discomfort and difficulty breathing when using the protective face gear.
Yesterday, I was doing my regular workout and I had on this mask. I didn't want to take it off because I didn't want to get charged. But in the midst of that, I felt as if though I was going to pass out. And I had to take it off because I just felt that some research needs to be done on the use of this mask. I can understand why the police officers take off theirs. For you to be using this all day, it can't be healthy. I'm healthy, I don't have no kind of illness whatsoever, but I'm gonna be 60, so I'm at that high risk age, and I wouldn't want, after taking good care of myself, that I just drop dead because of a mask, you know. So not to, well, I may be exaggerating, but I just feel that eventually this is going to create some kind of problems for individuals, that they will come down with a different kind of ailment.
It is the basic process of inhalation. When you breathe in, the lungs bring oxygen into the body, and as you exhale, you are breathing out carbon dioxide, a waste gas produced by the cells of the body. So what about those persons who have pre-existing lung disease, such as asthma or pneumonia and tuberculosis, or even lung cancer? Their condition can be further complicated by the usage of masks.
When you inhale, when you exhale, more than likely you'll be inhaling back the same, a little bit of the carbon dioxide as you put it, and it will give you an adverse effect. If you do that too intense, too fast for a little while, your carbon dioxide will go up and you'll feel either dizzy or woozy and feel some unfortunate way. For those particular persons who have already a underlying lung disease, like the COPDs, the asthma, it's when they're in the public, it's the best thing to protect them actually, because they are a very highly vulnerable group. So they rather be discomforting, take it easy, than catch the virus. And because then when they're in a particular adverse situation, if they catch the COVID.
Now there are different types of face masks. Surgical masks are commonly used by frontline healthcare workers and are now retailing to the public at $2 a piece. Recently, several persons as well as some organizations have embarked on the mass production of reusable cloth masks, which allows for a one-time investment, especially during the economic crunch. Dr. Fernando Cuellar, an internist at the Belize Medical Associates, who has been very vocal about the local response to the COVID-19, says that he advocates for the use of masks.
These surgical masks are perhaps the better one to use overall, okay? They're designed to protect your airways better. They may be a little bit more expensive. I use both. I use the surgical masks here in the office, here in the hospital, because then I'm exposed to people who are sick, okay? But I also cloth masks that if I'm driving around, if I'm outside, I can use a cloth mask, okay? So those are the two different, the differences between them. If I have, for example, I have right here what we call the more specialized mask, the N95 mask. If I have any suspected case, I switch from the surgical to that one will give me better protection. So that people don't need to be in the public with the N95 mask, just a face covering, okay, or the surgical mask.
As a result of the nationwide lockdown, the Young Women's Christian Association had closed off its programs. The organization is producing masks as a way of still providing a service to the community. At $5 each, the design of their cloth masks takes into consideration air quality and effective breathing while using the protective accessory at this time.
And I did a bit of research and realized cloth masks are recommended for the general public to use, not necessarily medical or surgical masks, but cloth masks, which is what we're producing. And you have to make sure that you have breathing space in your mask. So all of those cloths that are coming straight across your face that suffocates you, remember you're going to be breathing back in your carbon dioxide. We breathe in oxygen, we breathe out CO2 or carbon dioxide. So when you have that air circulating in a tight space, you're breathing back what you're exhaling, which is very unhealthy. So you need to make sure that you have space within your mask to breathe, and the wide design does give you that.
In the Belize context, the response to COVID-19, despite 2 recorded deaths, have been good, and all positive patients have now recovered. There are warnings, however, that if Belizeans fail to be cautious, we can be hit with a second wave of the virus. Dr. Cuellar says that the obligatory wearing of masks is a sacrifice that must be taken regardless of discomfort.
Of course, it's a very inconvenient thing to have on, okay, especially prolonged, maybe an hour. Even us in the medical field who are used to face masks, now that we are using it 24 hours a day, 23 hours a day, 20 hours a day, we've also been affected. I can take off my mask right now and show you scars where it's drying up the skin on my face. And I don't like it, but it's necessary. I can understand the people who want to exercise and are being asked, for example, to use a face mask. Then you exercise at a less intensity, for example, or you choose to exercise indoors, sacrifice for at least another month, okay? But it is to the greater good of the Belizean public. If not, we are up the S-creek again, okay, without one paddle this time, if we were to have any second wave.
Dwayne Moody for News 5.
The cost of not wearing a mask in public can cost you $5,000. It's a hefty fine to pay when reusable masks are going for as low as $5 in some places. But there's still some who are not adhering to the new law. Today, when we spoke with Belize Territorial Volunteers leader Will Mejia, he told us that while many residents in Toledo have been complying to the rules, there are still quite a few who are not using the protective gear in public. Mejia appealed to the residents in his town to protect themselves and also called on the police to take action against those who are not complying.
Definitely, there's lots more people on the streets and a lot more people coming to town, and I would just like to encourage everybody to wear their mask. I think the mask is very important, and I want to encourage the police, if they see people without a mask, bring in the law, and we'll have to start to do some arrests so that people take it serious. I think that some people take it serious, but there's still a number of people who I saw yesterday who did not have their mask on, and it's important that every one of us wear our mask. So I just want to applaud the police for the job they're doing, but I want to encourage them to really be strict with the law. Wearing a mask is a must, then we need to wear the mask.
Have people been adhering to the social distancing or the physical distancing rule down there?
I would say pretty much so. The majority of people have been adhering to the rules and regulations. So people are obeying the rules. They're social distancing. The banks, I want to applaud the Belize Bank and Scotia Bank for ensuring that the people maintain their social distance. The Pagoda Credit Union and a lot of the stores, actually stores have marks where people can stand in line, which is the 5 or 6 feet away from each other. So I think that people down here are really trying their best and doing their best to adhere to the rules. The people of Punta Gorda have been alert, and whenever they see something suspicious, they would call into the news station and say, hey, investigate this or investigate that. And I think that the villagers themselves are also helping to man the borders to make sure that there's not that illegal crossing. And once people see something that looks like an illegal crossing, they start taking action. So all in all, I think that the Belizean people are very cooperative and doing what they can to prevent COVID from coming in this area.
The rains last week doused the huge fires that were burning out of control in the Vaca and Chiquipo forests in the west. The damage, however, was already done. Huge areas of the forests were destroyed. Several animals were killed and their habitats destroyed. The fires in the Vaca forest and along the western border are believed to have been caused by Guatemalan farmers. Friends for Conservation and Development, under the leadership of Rafael Manzanero, has been fighting the fires in an attempt to lessen the damage. Manzanero says the process to assess the damage to wildlife has begun.
Yeah, as far as we know, the fires were basically already off after the rains. We did do an aerial overflight, right around that very same time. That was last week. And we certainly were able to validate and confirm that the fires, the smoke was basically already was off. And that also included the Chiquibul and the Caracol areas as well. We were able to find some of the, or at least a few of the animals and their sort of their habitat that were impacted in the Chiquibul, primarily. So for sure, animals were displaced. We don't really know to what extent, because in reality, we still really need to zone off the area to look at the area of impact. However, we do know that we saw, for example, a bush rabbit in the Chiquibul that was burnt, and for sure other nesting areas of birds and other small animals would certainly have been affected, but we don't really know the extent of that. It's really, really difficult to say for biodiversity in terms of impacts, but we would try at least really to look at the zone, any particular areas that were highly impacted, at least really to get an idea and a sort of an approximation about the losses.
When we come back, UNICEF provides care packages to students staying at home during the pandemic.
With over 100
This morning, UNICEF handed over 1,000 boxes of food and hygiene items to the Ministry of Education. The hampers are for underprivileged students who are enrolled in the government's primary school feeding program. News 5 was at today's handing over ceremony. Here's that story.
There are hundreds of primary school students who are experiencing extreme hardships because of the closure of schools. That's because these students depend on their school's feeding program. Without it, they may go hungry all day. But UNICEF has stepped up to help provide meals for them. Today, Michelle Guinan, officer in charge at UNICEF Belize, handed over 1,000 care packages to the Ministry of Education.
It is, of course, very important to ensure that all students can continue to learn. And so that's why we are now supporting the ministry in providing 1,000 hamper kits and as a support to the school feeding program, and in that way to ensure that students will be able to continue the learning process.
The government school feeding program currently has 1,400 students enrolled. This donation, however, will be given to 1,000 of the neediest students of the program in the Stan Creek District, Belize District, and Belize City. The families will collect the packages from the schools.
As a result of school being closed at this time, we want to ensure that the children are eating properly. We know for a fact that these children were on the feeding program because their parents were having a hard time financially. So as you know, many of their parents may not have employment at this time. So we have approached UNICEF and they have delivered these boxes having fruits, vegetables, hygiene products, as well as other items valuing over $100 per box. This is intended for students who are on the school's feeding program sponsored by the Ministry of Education.
The value of the 1,000 nutrition and hygiene packages is around 146,000 Belize dollars. Denise Roberto of UNICEF says that a single box, valued at over 100 Belize dollars, is expected to last a family of 4 for about a week. Each family also received pamphlets with information and tips to help make the most out of their care hampers.
The contents of the kit is looking at hygiene needs for a family of about 4, and the nutrition contents would cover a family for approximately a week or so. We are providing 1,000 kits at the moment to support the children on the school feeding program, and we do know that within one family there are more than one child. So in effect, I believe that we would be reaching more than 1,000 children. Within each package and box, we put in a flyer on nutrition tips to support a healthy immune system. We have a nutrition consultant at UNICEF. We've been working with the Ministry of Health as well as the Ministry of Education, Youth, Sports and Culture, the Ministry of Agriculture, on a school feeding, sustainable school feeding committee. And so we do have nutrition tips. We have some hygiene tips, tips for healthy preparation, tips even if you are breastfeeding, to just ensure that breastfeeding continues throughout this time of emergency, and some helpful recipes that can be used.
Reporting for News 5, I'm Andrea Polanco.
On April 22nd, the University of Belize issued a 3-page press release to update students about steps being taken as the university navigates these uncertain COVID-19 times. There are some students, however, who are not happy about the university's recommendation to voluntarily withdraw from courses where they are not able to, quote, access online instruction, or where the courses cannot be fully and successfully delivered by this mode, unquote. The release noted students will not face any academic or financial penalty if they withdraw, saying they can re-register for the course whenever it is offered next. Now, many students are not happy with this recommendation because they believe that no other solid alternative was given to accommodate them for courses they have already paid for. Some students are also concerned that withdrawing will affect when they complete their degree. When we caught up with Chief Education Officer Dr. Carol Babb this morning, she told us that another member of the Ministry of Education sits on the board of directors of UB, but they weren't made aware of these concerns.
I haven't heard the complaints, but then I will talk to our representative to try to address this issue.
If students don't have the access to technology, in this case, for some of them, they probably don't have computers at home or internet to be able to do their online studies. I mean, what can be done, or is there anything that the ministry is looking at in terms of assisting students in this kind of way?
Well, I'm hoping that UB would do what the Ministry of Education is doing. We are providing hard copies so that students who don't have access, that they can have access. So I can only hope that UB will ensure that every teacher has access or every student has access. And so maybe they will revamp the way they are doing things. But I really can't comment because I'm not on the board.
UB's President Sankat has said that the students withdrawing from the course will not warrant any academic or financial penalty and that they would be able to re-register. Some students, however, are worried that this will push their timeline of completing their degree. President of the Student Union of Belize, Kevin Chen, is advising students to not fully withdraw from the courses.
The university, I believe, is doing what it can, although it can do a bit more. But what we had been encouraging our students to do is to do the incomplete form instead of the withdrawal form, because what the incomplete form does, because the university gives two options, right? One is to withdraw completely from the course, meaning you would end the course and you would end up with a grade of AU, I believe it's AU, or a W letter grade, meaning that you have withdrawn from the class. And then there's the second option, which is to fill out the incomplete form, and that would give you a letter grade of I. And what that essentially does is that it transfers your grades, your funds over to the next semester. So when you want to retake the course, that would you would already have some of your grades, some of your money. If you have paid all, then that's okay, that's good.
Coming up after the break, there were no reported cases of COVID-19 in the South, but fisher folk are feeling the impact of the pandemic.
With over 100.
A port with a global perspective.
50 families in Toledo are set to receive food hampers. The generous donation is being sponsored by Oceana Belize through the Belize Territorial Volunteers. The food packages are to extend some help to families in Barranco, as well as others in the wider Mojo and Tamash area of Toledo. BTV leader Will Mejia has packaged off the goods and will be doing distributions this week. He says that the donation comes as a big help for fisherfolk families who have been feeling the pinch during this challenging time.
About 50 families will receive, we haven't delivered it yet this morning, we were packing it up, will receive benefits, and there will be, we are giving out beans and some rice and salt and flour, you know, the basic food stuff. Because we know that it has been, like, you know, very challenging, especially for these folks who's on the waters. And, you know, we know that we've, along with the Belize Territorial Volunteers, we've always been, like, you know, going down there and making sure that there's no illegal fishing and that kind of stuff. So we always run into these fishermen, and we just want them to know that we are concerned not only about, like, when there's time of illegal fishing, but we are concerned all the time about human beings. Oceana knew what we were doing, and they decided, look, you know what, we've always had a good relationship with the Territorial Volunteers, and they wanted to give some help. So instead of them making an extra trip to come down here, they just gave us the funds, and we purchased the food to give out to the fishermen. They are going to welcome this. We always, you know, there are times when we have encounters with them because of fishing methods and things like that, but like we always say, hey, it's nothing personal, it's about sustainability, it's about longevity, it's about, you know, belief, and we want to have our resources forever. So I'm sure that they'll welcome it, and they showed a lot of interest in receiving what we will be bringing their way. Well, I just want to say, you know, a huge thank you to the Belizean populace, to Oceana, and we have had a number of other Belizeans just right here in the Punta Gorda and the Toledo area who, when they see us giving out some food items, they actually bring items and give us to give out as well.
As a part of giving back to the community, the BTV donated fish to frontline personnel at the hospital in Punta Gorda, as well as to other residents. The Ministry of Human Services also received a donation today. It came from the International Office of Migration, comprising of 300 hygiene kits to benefit vulnerable populations. The packages contain items such as toilet paper, soap, body wash, loofahs, deodorant, toothpaste, and toothbrush, all essential items for personal hygiene of women, men, and children. The care packages were presented by former Director of Immigration Diana Law, who is now with the IOM, to Leanne Arthurs of the Department of Human Services. And going back to the South, when we spoke with Will Mejia today, he shared that one of the restrictions has been very tough for residents to deal with in the southern coastal community. He says that there are many families who depend on fishing to feed their families. These are persons, he says, who fish only for household consumption, so they wouldn't have a license to operate. But new laws have prevented them from doing so. Today he shared their concerns, hoping that some kind of consideration may be given.
In Punta Gorda, it's not everybody have a commercial fishing license because of the process. So a lot of people are prevented from getting out to go fishing, and a lot of people, so that has been the number one complaint, is that, like, look, people are saying, look, if we're at sea and there's nobody around us, then we're much safer there than being in town where there's people around you, you know. So the complaints from more what we would call recreational fishing, which for a lot of people it's more sustainable fishing, because people go out not for recreation but to fish for food for their family. They are hoping that the government would consider people who don't go out to recreate, they go out to get food for their family. And out at sea, it's pretty safe. There's nobody around you. There's, you know, they maybe could restrict it to 2 or 3 people per boat, depending on the size of the boat. If your boat is 20 foot long, then you could have 3 or 4 people in there. You know, if it's 15 foot long, then you only should have 2 people. But a lot of people go out because they want to get food, not just for recreation. They want to go out and be able to feed their family. A lot of people in the south here depend on the sea for food and for protein. So that's the number one concern among, especially the people in the coast. I hope that this AG and the government does hear where these people are coming from. It's not recreational family fishing. it is food fishing, fishing for food.
The Fisheries Department has announced a set of rules in respect of licenses for which applications will now be taken by appointment. And that's the news. Don't forget that tonight's broadcast is available in both text and streaming video at channel5belize.com. You can also connect with us on our Facebook page at facebook.com/News5Live. I'm Marlene Cuellar. Thanks for joining us. And from all of us here at News 5, please remember to wash your hands, keep your social distance, stay home, stay safe. Good night.